He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving the poor little fox as he gained up on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, another cutscene. The music stopped, and Sonic vanished. Tails laid there and started crying for about 15 seconds. The scene was rather upsetting to watch, and I kinda teared up myself, but then Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down those blackened eyes of Sonic's as a grin slowly grew from his face as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails right before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that lasted 5 seconds. The text returned, only this time it said, "You're too late. You're too slow. Wanna try again?" And then that god-awful laugh came with it. I was so shocked by what had happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why did Sonic do that to him? I shook the shock off as I was brought back to the character select. The save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen itself, which was flickering with red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face, trying to ignore it. I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black again, and stayed there for about another 10 seconds. This time, the level said, "You can't run." I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't really tell if this was a glitch or a hack, or some kind of sick, twisted joke, or anything really, but despite my fear of what happened next, I kept on playing. The next level looked much different. It had the ground of the scrap brain zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. It had the dark reddish cloudy sky, but it was the music that creeped me out the most. It sounded like Gaiga's theme after you beat Pokey in Earthbound. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid, just like Tails did, though not as much. More rather, he looked a little unnerved. He broke the fourth wall just like Tails and looked as if he wasn't sure about what was going on, but I made a move anyways. I ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker, red static a couple of times. Then the maddening laugh came again. Then after a few seconds of running, I noticed several blood stains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear again, thinking something horrible was going to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated, walking down the blood-stained road, but I still kept him going. Suddenly, as Knuckles ran, Sonic appeared right in front of him with those black and red eyes, and the red static appeared again. But when the static vanished, showing nothing but black screen with text saying, "Found you." I was now scared. Sonic found Knuckles already? What was going on? Anyway, red static came again, and then I was back to the level. Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. And this time, that high-pitched squealing from the Silent Hill final boss was playing. Squealing from the Silent Hill 1's final boss was playing. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? I hope to God it wasn't, honestly. Suddenly, Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles in what appeared to be a pixelated black smoke. I made Knuckles turn and then punch Sonic, but Sonic vanished in a black pixelated smoke before I could even land a hit. That terrible laugh went off again. Then Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles again, and then I made him punch again, and Sonic vanished again laughing. Knuckles was panicking even more, and even I felt I was going crazy. Sonic was practically playing with us. He was playing a sick, twisted little mind game with me and Knuckles. Another cutscene played as Knuckles fell to his knees and clutched his head, sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was actually driving us both crazy. And then, in a split second, Sonic once again lunged at Knuckles. Sonic once again lunged at Knuckles, and the screen went black with another distorted screeching noise that lasted for at least 3 seconds. Another text message appeared. So many souls to play with, so little time. Do you agree? What the hell is going on? I started to think Sonic was actually trying to talk to me through the game, but I was too scared to think that. I was brought back to the main menu, and this time, the second file box had Knuckles in the TV screen. His red fur had darkened to a reddish gray. His dreadlocks were dripping with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding too, and he had a look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those are the actual characters trapped in those TV screens on the save files, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. So I shut off the game and took a break, took a nap. Wish I hadn't, because then I began to have the most disturbing nightmare. I was in pitch black darkness, though I was under the light given off by a lamp that hung high above my head. I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us," and "Why did you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too." The cries died out, as then I heard Sonic's laugh. His laugh. It sounded a lot like the distorted Kefka laugh. You're a lot fun to play with, kid. Just like your friend Kyle. Though, to be honest, he didn't last long. I was scared and looking around for the source of the voice. Won't be long now until you join him and all my other friends. I saw him walking toward me, flickering in and out of several directions. You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others. When he grabbed me, and I saw his bleeding black and red-eyed, grinning face, I woke up with a fright. After a couple of hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening, so I turned on the computer, turned on the game, and selected Robotnik next. I still thought that was wacky, playing as Robotnik, but anyway, the level title appeared again, and this time it said nothing but 3 dots, which I found really freaky. This time I was in some kind of hallway. Didn't really look like it was from any classic Sonic games, though it has the pixelated style. The floor was shiny and checkered. The walls were a dark grayish purple, and the animated candle lights and a few dark blood stains here and there. And there was a dark red curtain hanging above on the top part of the screen. Every 12 seconds or so, the red curtains sway very slowly, but whenever you're playing the game, you can barely see it move. The music was oddly pleasant, and a piano playing a rather sad but yet peaceful song, but I knew better. This was the song that played in Hill Act 1, only it wasn't in reverse. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Knuckles did. He did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was a bit paranoid. He did a little animation when I just left him standing. He turns his head to the left and then to the right, at least twice, and then he shrugs at me, as if he has no idea where he was or what was going on. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I had Robotnik continue onward. He did his usual running animation, you know, when you've beaten him at the end of the classic Sonic game and you chase him. As we continued going through the hallway, then I stopped at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself, though I pressed onward. As I led Robotnik down the stairs, I noticed that the walls had gone darker and more reddish. The red torches are now eerie blue. Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was longer than the last one, or at least it felt like it. And then we headed down another flight of stairs down. This one was much longer. It took at least one full minute. And then I heard the horrid Kefka laugh again, and then the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red and the torches were a black flame now. When Robotnik landed onto the third hallway, I noticed he now looked really creeped out, though he tried to hide it. I couldn't blame him, I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped right in front of Robotnik, the same way he did with Knuckles, and then red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me the most unpleasant image. The image showed a hyper-realistic of Sonic standing in the darkness, where you can only see his face while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean like he looked so real, like you could actually see the lines in his blue fur, as if you could actually feel the fur if you touched the screen. His face, oh god, he had the most horrifying smile I had ever seen, and that's saying something considering I saw that image of the start of the game. His eyes are wide and black and once again crying blood, which also look hyper-realistic. And there were two small glowing dots in those black eyes staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the sides of his face, like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs, very sharp fangs, much like a werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking, somewhat yellowish, and from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs, as if he ate some animal. I stared at the gruesome image for about a good 30 seconds, never taking my eyes off of it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face, it took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my mind, etch itself into my brain for good. Then the screen flickered with red static again 3 times, and on the third time, I heard the Kefka laugh again. Except this time, it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time, there was text again, though it was messed up. But it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game. I am God. It was when I read that message while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right there and then this Sonic was a monster. A pure, evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster, and all of his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and possibly even Kyle, are just his little toys, and the game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world, and the very hell and his victims are trapped in. Suddenly, in an actual split second, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly with his mouth wide open to the unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literally spiraling abyss of pure darkness before the red static came again. This time, much louder and distorted, so loud that it hurt my ears. I yelled and grabbed my ears as the red static screeched for a good 7 seconds. Then it stopped and showed nothing but black screen. As I sat there staring at the black screen, one last text came up. Ready for round 2? Tom? The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear, as if Sonic was right behind me. Playing again 3 times as I looked at that text in shocking confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu, and this time, the third save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin turned a dull gray, his mustache drooped and had blackened, his glasses broke, and blood is coming from them, and he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and I cried a bit. I pitied them for their agony they're going through. They were forever trapped within the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. Then the computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. I sat there for maybe 25 seconds, horrified, but what had just happened? By what had just happened? Sonic is a very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who plays his game in more ways than one, and then he gets bored. He drags you into the game, literally drags you into hell, where he can play with you always as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there, but at least I managed to turn it back on now. After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom. I turned around to see where the voice had come from, and what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, smiling with bloodstains under its eyes.